Well, good morning from Pu Luong. Pu Luong is even more beautiful this morning than it was yesterday afternoon when I went for my sort of late walk. Today I've just wandered off the main road down into villages along these sort of muddy paths. They're a bit slippery, but as you can see, it is just magnificent here. So here's something kind of interesting. I've been on two sort of walks for 2 or 3 hours here in Pu Luong, and one of the things that keeps striking me is that I'm not encountering the plastic rubbish on all the paths and that you tend to see elsewhere as you travel in Vietnam. So while Western countries have been clogging up rivers and the ocean with plastic waste for decades, in Vietnam it feels like a new problem. I don't really recall coming across the piles of plastic rubbish 15 and 20 years ago in Vietnam. There's another issue too. Vietnam is recognised as one of the big consumers of plastic, single-use plastic today, but it has a second problem, and that is the disposal of its plastic waste. When you use plastic in a country like Australia, there's a pretty good chance you won't see it wash up on your local beach, whereas in Vietnam, there is a much higher chance that the plastic waste you're producing will actually appear in a pile of rubbish along a trail that you're trekking along, or on the beach that you're enjoying your resort holiday on. And that's because Vietnam isn't disposing of its plastic as effectively as Western countries are. And I should also point out that countries like Australia send waste, including plastic waste, to countries like China and Vietnam. So we don't have many grounds for sort of sanctimony when it comes to looking at Vietnam's plastic crisis. As a traveller, you're most likely to use single-use plastic when you're drinking water, because you can't get water any other way in most places. Yet, on those few occasions where I've stayed at hotels, and I stayed in one in Hoi An recently, where they provide water, complimentary in this case, to their guests out of a recyclable tank, then you don't have to produce any plastic waste at all. So it's really time for hotels and restaurants and cafes as well to step up and make water available out of reusable containers. Now, whether you charge for that or whether you make it available without charge, that's up to you. But it has to be possible, and it has to be a priority for those of us in the travel industry to make plastic-free water consumption an easy option for travellers while they're on the road. That single initiative will have a huge impact on plastic waste in the tourism industry. Vietnam's plastic waste problem isn't just an environmental problem, it's also an economic problem. The problem of plastic in Vietnam has reached a point that travellers are commenting on it constantly, particularly people who are travelling to the beaches or people who are travelling to remote parts expecting to find pristine nature. The good news is that there's already quite a lot of concern about this issue in the travel industry, but also among young Vietnamese, and they're already taking steps, but of course we need to do more. Wouldn't it be wonderful if a place like Pu Luong could become a plastic-free destination? I believe Cham Island off the coast of Hoi An is already plastic-free, and places around the world are declaring themselves plastic-free. But Pu Luong seems to be in a great position because there isn't a plastic problem there at the moment, and what a catastrophe it would be if the development of Pu Luong as a tourism destination brought with it an increase in plastic waste. And it's very likely that if a place like Pu Luong goes plastic-free, that it'll inspire imitators. What a wonderful competition it'd be if the different parts of Vietnam were competing to have a higher environmental and plastic-free standard. I think that's something we should be aiming for. So, the movement's there, the movement's on around the world. I think Vietnam stands to benefit both environmentally, but also economically by taking more serious action to reduce the amount of plastic waste.